Hello and welcome to the Union Show. I'm Phil Cleary. Captain Paul Watson is famous for his battles with the Japanese whalers. It's won him great support in the community and, of course, with the trade union movement. Kassey Dickie went in search of the man and the policies. Here's what she discovered.
I set up the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society about 30 years ago to intervene against poaching activities, illegal exploitation of marine wildlife, and that's what we've been doing over the years. We're protecting sharks in the Galapagos, seals in Canada, whales down the southern oceans, dolphins in Japan, and so we operate internationally, but we only intervene against issues where there's a clear case of illegality. I don't particularly want to live in a world that has exterminated the great whales or the seals and everything, and right now the oceans are in an increasing state of diminishment, and I was raised in a fishing village in eastern Canada. I've seen that steady decline in biodiversity, and I can't think of anything more noble to fight for than the protection of endangered species and habitats. I mean, we give people medals for going to defending some oil company's oil well somewhere, and then people question what we do. Well, how can you risk your life to protect a whale? Well, it's certainly much more worthy than risking your life to protect an oil well. Mostly it was a case of chasing and them running. Every time we found them, they would run, and we would chase them for days and days and days. In total, we were down at sea for 86 days, and we covered 20,090 miles, which is just 1,500 miles short of the circumference of the Earth at the equator. So it was a lot of chasing, and as long as they're running, they're not killing whales. So next year when we come back, what we want to do is keep them going from the beginning of the season to the end. And the confrontations are very simple. We simply attack them with organic, non-toxic, biodegradable materials like methyl cellulose, which makes the deck really slippery, and butyric acid, which is rotten butter. It's almost impossible to work on deck with the smell that it creates. As Ian Campbell actually said in the paper yesterday, he said, well, it's just childish pranks, and the Japanese respond with concussion grenades and bullets, and then they have the audacity to accuse us of being violent. In fact, one Japanese reporter said that because of our extreme violence, they're going to be down next year with a gunboat to sink us. And I said, don't you see the ridiculousness of that statement? They're becoming increasingly frustrated at the fact that they're losing so much money. They're in debt to $37 million in subsidies to the Japanese government, and this year we were able to prevent them from taking over half their quota. That cost them $70 million in lost revenues, and it's a severe economic blow, and I'm hoping that it'll keep them from coming back at the end of the year. But if they do, we'll be back there again. You have to keep in mind that the union that supplies the sailors for this thing is a Yakuza-controlled union. It's a mafia-controlled union, and so it's a violent union. This year is really, I think, going to be a turning point, because I don't think that the Japanese whaling industry can sustain that kind of economic hit that we gave them this year. I mean, it costs an incredible amount of money to come down here to kill those whales. We estimated that just the chasing alone, that they burned almost $5 million worth of fuel, because where we burn 5 tons a day of fuel chasing them, the Nishan Maru by itself burns 25 tons a day. And the entire fleet now is burning well over 100 tons a day, So when you look at that kind of fuel consumption for no return, and they really took a big economic hit. I've been doing this for 30 years, and we've sunk 9 whaling ships and haven't been convicted of it. In 1986, we sank half of Iceland's whaling fleet and destroyed their whale processing plant. That was a $10 million hit on their industry. Now that might sound very illegal, but they wouldn't press charges. I had to fly to Reykjavik to demand that they press charges. They told me to leave the country. The Federal Minister of Justice stood up in the Parliament in Iceland and says, who does he think he is? He comes into our country and demands to be arrested. Get him out of here. Because Iceland knew that to put me on trial would be to put themselves on trial for illegal whaling, and they declined to do it. So when we sink whaling ships in Norway or Spain or whatever like that, they know that they're guilty. And so that's the reason that we get away with doing what we're doing. If they sink us at sea, then I think that they've escalated it to a higher level. Maybe we might be able to finally force Australia and New Zealand to go down there and exercise some authority in waters that they claim to be their own. What is the point of calling it the Australian Antarctic Territory and the Australian Whale Sanctuary if anybody can go down there and kill a whale? I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's like letting the Japanese come into Australia and start, shooting platypuses in the park or something. It's, you expect somebody to do something about it. We have all of the treaties and regulations and laws that we need to protect the oceans, but none of them are being enforced. They're all being ignored. There's no economic or political motivation to get people to actually stand up and protect our oceans. There's every economic motivation to exploit and destroy the oceans, and none to save it. There's an Australian federal court order prohibiting whaling in these waters. That's not being enforced, but they're going to come after us for tossing a stink bomb on a poaching vessel. I mean, where's he even going to begin? It's a jurisdictional nightmare. The problem is that all these politicians, they've got to bend over backward to kiss the rear ends of the Japanese corporations and the Japanese government, because Japan's one big economic heavyweight bully. Australia is acting like a vassal state to Imperial Japan right now. And I think that they should get a little backbone and stand up for what they are, because when you think about it, Japan needs Australia more than Australia needs Japan.
Well, the